Welcome to this episode. We're super interested to bring you this today because we're going to talk about something that's very close to both of our hearts, which is having interests. And we refer specifically to interests outside of work, the kind of interest that makes us more interesting human beings, the kind of interest that fills an empty hour, the kind of interest that you look back on through the week and say, wow, I can't wait to get back to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, so that then brings us to immediately ask why are interests important?
Wow. Well, first of all, I would say that there's never been a time in human history when, as a civilization, we're so short of time. And if you were to ask somebody why, then also I don't think anyone's got a good answer. It just feels like time's draining away in these little dribs and drabs.
Yeah.
And we need, I think, some way to center ourselves, some way to get in touch with ourselves, some way to explore possibilities.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is number one, which is that time is a new luxury. And we've forgotten what it feels like to have something that isn't about either work or family.
Yeah. Yeah. So since you said time is a new luxury, that's also new articulation that I'm seeing in multiple places, which is what are the new luxuries that, and what is that new class of people that have this luxury? And so that's time, that's calmness, it's having available energy. And now the trouble with calling them luxuries is it automatically then indicates that a privileged few should have these and not everyone. And I think one of the reasons you wanted to talk about this is also to debunk that and say that interests don't necessarily discriminate, and that it being considered an evolved thing, right? I remember 20 years ago, people would say, oh, you know what, my US counterpart is always going outside and hiking and, so funny. And that has now changed to, the realization that I'm allowed to have it as well. But I'm not too sure to what degree do we have the permissions to actually go out and explore these with a full heart. And that possibly is a good reason for us to talk about this in detail. And we'll touch upon each of these over the next few minutes.
Mm-hmm. Well, it strikes me that it's largely the urban working professional that's prone to this kind of counterproductive thinking, who thinks that every waking hour has to be spent either at work or or with family. There's nothing wrong with either of those things, but I don't think they should be the be all and end all.
Agreed.
I remember this example you gave me about, was it around COVID time?
Yes, pre-COVID actually.
Yeah, you want to talk about that?
Sure. And so to talk about is having interests the domain of the very few, and to share a counterpoint to that, I'd heard about this group of migrant workers, largely working with working as delivery partners and so on, and they'd meet every Sunday somewhere in Michaelpalia for a cricket league, and there were some 15-16 teams, which meant 150 people coming together every Sunday. Their families would come along with a picnic and sit around on the side. The children are playing their own little games of cricket while these people are spending the day playing by themselves. And what they said was you really look forward to that one day of quiet and kind of connecting with your people and eating the kind of food that you're used to and being out in the open.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
That's lovely. I think the other big reason why having interest is important is because it takes care of something that all of us face at a fairly existential level. No pun intended, but existential dread. All of us have it.
Yeah.
And I think what having interest does is, in a certain way, it shows us our right place in the world, which is really that we're no more than a grain of sand, and somehow that's oddly and paradoxically reassuring.
Comforting, yeah.
Right? That we're not really here to change the world. If we believe we do, then we are deluding ourselves. To paraphrase Kurt Vonnegut, what he said is, I think we're put on this earth to fart around.
Nice. Correct. I remember this. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, Kurt Vonnegut thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it takes you out of the world where your identity is your title and what your LinkedIn bio says, or or any of that, or who you are when you're out in a social gathering with your family, and really brings you in connection with yourself. And you meet others only as deeply as you've met yourself. And interests are a great opportunity to meet all the various yous that you can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes
That
us
sounds a
out
little
of-
bit like Dr. Seuss, but okay. Sorry.
It takes us out of the echo chamber of our own heads, right?
Yeah. So that then very automatically leads us to asking what makes an interest.
Anything in my mind that requires an investment of emotion, time, and cognitive function.
Nice.
Anything that you want to get better at, anything that grabs you by the scruff of your neck and says, let's do this. And therefore, what it's not, I think, which perhaps I might like to talk about what an interest is not. Shopping is not an interest. Exploring, the latest fancy restaurant in town is not an interest. If you can, let me say this, if you can swipe your credit card and have unlimited access, that's not an interest. So therefore, what is an interest, right? Maybe families of interest might be a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some things that come to mind are sports and the outdoors.
Yeah.
Mechanical function, so tinkering with machines, getting better at anything. There's also, I think, arts,
Yeah.
which I'd like you to talk about.
Sure. So, and that's anything, right? From crafts, which is knitting, or crochet and so on. It could be music. I have a ton of friends who've come to music at different stages of their life. A friend doesn't miss any concerts, right? And so his connection with music is to go and listen to it live, right? And then there's a whole environment that's built around it. So he's not a musician, but his skill is to kind of figure out what kind of music and what does it do for him. And a series of others who play various kinds of instruments or sing, and to various degrees, right? It could be jamming inside my house. So music is one. Dance movement could be another. Art, so painting and so on. A good way to look at, is it an interest, is also to say, I might pursue mastery, but does it require the same degree of mastery that I expect out of, the mainstream sort of work that I do? And examples of that, and I'm going to kind of refer to what I wrote down earlier, which is so many famous people known for one thing would also be interested in something else. Einstein famously used to sail, play the violin. Feynman writes about playing the banjo and just his deep love for percussion. Meryl Streep apparently knits. Steve Wozniak plays something called Segway polo. Rod Stewart builds elaborate railway models and apparently carries them with him on tour, right? So we don't really know any of these people for knitting or, Segway polo. But just because you're a technologist doesn't mean you can't go out and do something on a Segway and play polo or, so on. And that, I think, is the idea that you might be known for a thing, but your inner world could be enriched by something entirely else. And that leads me to an interesting thing that we did with this episode, which is we brought in a few other voices. And Pavan, do you want to talk about your short conversation?
So, So I have this dear friend, Vivek Radhakrishnan. Vivek is a fascinating and very multifaceted character, right? He set up and managed India's first professional cycling team. Um, he is an industrial designer by training. He also has an interest in art, owns an art gallery. He loves motorcycles. He loves architecture. I mean, man's so multifaceted that really what I figure is he's had to make time. He's had to triage his interests and say, okay, these I can't pursue. Oh, he used to be an amateur pilot. If these I can't pursue anymore, these I can make time for. And what I figured in my conversation with him, and this really sort of rings true for my experience with my interests as well, is that interests make you a better person. They, I think they complete this neural loop in our heads and actually get us to function better with the rest of our lives as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's maybe look at that interview that I did with Vivek.
Yeah.
You know, clearly you're somebody that carves out a lot of time for his interests. Would you like to walk us through what these interests are first?
Sure. So this is a big one right here. It's like all my motorbikes, you know, just like keeping them in good nick, and then some of them are like have become design projects. So actually, yeah, that's interesting because for me, so I'm an industrial designer, right, in my training, and I did that for a long time before I started working in the art space. So right now, this is something that really keeps me connected to doing something creative, you know, redesigning, rebuilding, all of that. So this is really a creative outlet. And I would say that for me, this is a really big one right now. So I used to race, I used to train a lot. That is over now for whatever reasons, because of my back. So a lot of that time has shifted towards the bikes and traveling, going on adventures, and even starting to race these things. How do I carve out the time? This is a huge one actually. So today is a Saturday. It's my holy day. It's the one day that I try to take, without any guilt, make this a day for myself to do whatever I want to do. I take work calls, but my team handles things, and the family knows to leave me alone because they also know that I'm a better person on Sunday if I've spent a good Saturday doing whatever it is I need to do. I've realized that time is the most precious thing for me right now. Also at a time in life where, you know, if I want something, I can probably just buy it. Not somebody who wants crazy things, but that doesn't give me the same satisfaction as doing something myself, and to do something myself takes time. I've been working on this thing for a year. So time is really the most precious thing, and I think I've only recently learned, and I have to give my wife credit for that, to make time for myself unforgivingly, you know, to tell the world to take a hike, and it's only one day or half a day a week, but I've become one of those people who now lives for the weekend. I love my job, but I get this undivided kind of solo time with friends like yourself. Yeah. So there's the bikes that we spoke about, and basically they lend themselves to travel. So then there's also travel, and there's adventure in all of its different forms, on, you know, on foot, on bicycle, in the car, off-road, etc. But, you know, other interests, I would say, actually one of my problems is that there are just too many, and there have always been too many, and I've actually tried to pursue many of them. I don't know if professionally is the word, but at least to a high level, since the time that I was a kid. Music is a big one actually, which has kind of fallen by the side for a long time, and I'm hoping to retire and get back to it. Wildlife is a big one, or I should say nature. You know, it's just being out there in wild spaces, but also I'm really keen on birds and animals and things like that. You know, that's always been bird watching and going to the forest and looking for animals and etc. etc. And what are the other interests? Oh my God, so many. Architecture, huge. So recently had the opportunity to design a house. Oh, again, which you've been privy to since the very start. And lots of things. Filmmaking has always been something that, I kind of started doing it in whatever, with the small Canon XS cameras, and then that's kind of grown into something else where it's gotten sort of mixed with work now, where I make films about artists.
Wow.
Cooking, because we had another side project that we did, so I was really into food. But then that also ties in with the sports and fitness and health, right? So because food is really connected, nutrition is really connected to that. But yeah, sports was a big one with the cycling, because from the racing days and running a team at quite a high level and mentoring athletes and so on. So yeah, no shortage of stuff. I'm sure I can come up with more things if I think. But all of that means that time becomes that much more precious, because how do you do all of these things?
Yeah.
Right.
And so what do these give back to you?
I think a lot of peace of mind. They bring a lot of joy. To just get out on the bike and bugger off to Ladakh for like 10 days alone is just one of the most amazing things one can do. Being in nature, I think it's what everybody needs and what not enough people do. If you do it, you'll know what it does for you. It's just, it centers you. It kind of puts into perspective what's important, because we get so carried away with all of the other day-to-day stuff in work, in business, and all of that. Nature is just huge, actually. Just to be able to spend time out in the boonies, in the sticks, observing animals and all, it just brings so much joy. And it also makes us, like I said, it brings perspective on what's really important. I think having interests is great. I don't know how people don't have interests. Like whatever it is, right? Creating the opportunity to actually spend time on them and try them out is huge. I don't know. I have, maybe I got it from my dad, but I have this real one life kind of philosophy, and like when it's over, it's over. So all of those things to see, all of those things to do, all of those things to try. It's now, and then when one is getting older, like I'm pushing 50 in a year, you tell yourself like you got to do them now. And also the thing is, again, like you, all of the stuff I want to do kind of requires you to be pretty physically fit, right? So health is a big one in all of this, because if you don't stay healthy, then you can't do any of those things. So I actually need to make a lot of time to stay fit, because otherwise I just don't stay fit. Fitness is one of those things that goes. So there goes that.
Yeah. So what I'm, also struck by is how, for something to be an interest, there's this whole intrinsic motivation element that comes in, where external rewards disappear, and you're essentially doing it for what's important for you. It could be mastery, it could be a sense of control, it could be meaningful connections, it could be aligning with your values and beliefs, it could be building resilience across that area that you've chosen. But it's not rewards in the sense that we are trained to think about rewards. It's intrinsic motivation.
Yeah, it's intrinsic motivation, absolutely. An internal locus of reward rather than external locus of reward, right? And some of these things you've talked about already, right? So how do you know it's an interest? Does it give you meaning? Are you striving for mastery inside of your own abilities, right? So mastery here is better than I was, to be better than I was yesterday. Does it sort of help reset me, right?
What do you mean by reset? So if you can give an example of how you're motivated.
Sure. So, let's say I go out on a ride. Let's say Vivek and I go on a ride and we explore these trails, right? And you come back and you're like, wow, that was so much fun. We explored these trails that we haven't explored before. And the reset there is that I now look forward to the rest of the week because I have spent a day doing something that I really love. And that gives me now the drive and the clean slate. That's what I mean by a reset. It gives me the clean slate to look forward to the weekend and say, okay, this could be fun. So the reset is, I think, in our minds and our bodies. I
Yeah.
think that answers your question.
It does, it does. And that is a great example of, see, we read a lot about what contributes to good mental health or how to counter burnout, and we hear a lot of these terms there. What you've done is you've articulated in real life what does it look like to counter burnout, right? Which is I carve out a few hours every Sunday and do something that systematically sort of reduces the stress that I might have built up during the week. So my meter resets literally, and then I have more gas in the tank to meet the week coming up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe another way to look at it is also we're reducing the dopamine spikes that day-to-day living can give us, which is why we do a lot of online shopping. We buy food that we don't want, we buy outfits that we don't want. And we are maximizing the gentle high of serotonin, which comes from achievement, and minimize the sharp, jagged peaks and troughs of dopamine, which just comes from buying one thing, getting a bit of a high from it, and then buying the next thing the moment we're on the downslope.
Yeah, or spending a lot of time doom scrolling. And in that moment, it feels very good because
Every new reel is a
every new reel
dopamine
is,
hit, right?
is I'm looking at somebody living a different life, and as soon as that's gone, it's and you said peaks and troughs. The troughs accumulate as well, right? And that's what leads to that dread when unexamined.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And you spoke about mastery, right? You said both meaning and mastery. And I think it could just mean I started something and I'm having fun with it, and I moved the needle just that little bit. And for those of us who, in other areas of life, primarily our work, possibly families, are used to being systematic overachievers, moving the needle just that much might feel like, especially when it's a theoretical construct, like not a lot. For example, I went on a couple of these sing-alongs, really, to use an old-fashioned word, where a bunch of people are singing and you know what song, so you go and you sing along with them. It feels like not a lot, but then when you come back, it's, yeah, it theoretically, before you go, you're like, so I'm going and I'm singing with a bunch of people, I'm coming back. Should I even go? And then you go and then you experience it and you come back, and the high of that stays with you for many days. And, and then in hindsight, with that experience, I'm able to say, right, so there's a bunch of reasons why this worked. You're raising your voice with strangers, but there's a sense of
Raising your voice in song, not in argument. So I had to be said.
Go to the sing-along, fight with a lot of strangers and come back.
If you do, I don't.
Very nice. No. Yeah. So speaking of, somebody that I went and sang along with recently was Sunitha. And Sunitha Krishnamurthi is, many things among, being the person who leads Navgati and, a really sought after leadership facilitator, runs that business flawlessly and so on. But also as somebody with varied interests, and I'm going to leave it to her to talk about the interests and what it does for her.
So my mom would laugh at that question because she would say that I constantly keep developing a new hobby. But over the years, the interests that I've had have been hiking, dance, gardening, singing, playing the piano, and various art stuff, drawing, doodling, origami, and I'm sure there must be a couple of more which I'm forgotten for now. Yeah. How did they come about? I was thinking about that when you sent me the question. And I realized that there's a very clear pattern. It's one of two things. So either it is something that I really was interested in as a child and for whatever reason couldn't afford to cultivate. Like whether my parents didn't have the resources or they didn't have the time to take me to classes or whatever. So things like dance, I've always been very excited about your dance. I really wanted to take classes, but there wasn't a teacher available. There was a music hall in school, and I would sit outside and listen to the kids studying for their LSM, whatever exams. And like I'd sit outside, have my lunch sitting outside and listen to the music. So a dance, I used to like, my fantasy was to be like Courtney Cox in that Wham video, right? Where he gets pulled up. Wham only, right? Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Bruce Springsteen puts it up on stage. So that was my fantasy. So when I like finally had the time and the money to invest in myself, I went quite naturally back to those things.
Yeah.
Go back to a time because all of us as children have multiple things that we're interested in. So go back there and see if there's something that you want to take forward.
Yeah.
So that's one. And the other thing, in the case of squash, I'm just learning to play squash now.
Oh, nice.
Dear friend of mine has gotten majorly into squash, so I've done that. I got into hiking because my best friend hikes a lot. The choir singing was courtesy you. So that's the second part of it, that I think I am interested in what other people are doing, and I'll allow myself to be influenced by that and try something out. Yeah, so those, I think, pretty much gardening I took up because my neighbor is an avid gardener. So almost all of my interests, I think all of them can be classified into one of these two areas. Yeah.
Amazing.
So I think finding time for me is a matter of whether there's space in my calendar for it. So as long as I bung it in over there, then I somehow find a way to work everything else around it. So time really hasn't been a trade-off for me in that sense. I think the one trade-off that I've had to make is in terms of allowing myself to be not good at something. Most of the time, I would not get into something that I knew I wasn't going to be the best at. So in all these cases, I've consciously had to work on myself to say that it's okay, that enjoyment versus expertise, it's okay to trade off on the interest part of your life. For one, I think it keeps me younger. Like I was talking to a very young acupuncturist of mine, and she was saying, for your age, you're pretty cool, pretty chill. I'm like, okay. So that thing of, I think having these interests like dance, for example, I've made so many younger friends as a result of being there. Hiking, two of my like dear friends are much, much younger than I am. So that's one part of it. It keeps me alive and therefore young. The other thing is the piece around community. It's given me a chance to build lasting friendships, and even if not lasting friendships, a loosely held network of many people. So that's something that it's given me. And just joy.
Yeah.
I think to be, I wake up in the morning looking forward to a squash lesson. I love learning, so I guess that's the other thing. I love learning, and having these many interests has ensured that I'm constantly learning something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, because I've been in that place, right, when I was working before Navkati, where work would be hectic all week long, and the weekends were partying and recovering from the work and the partying. And then it would be Monday morning and be like, okay, where has the time gone? So I find that when I actually invest in where I spend my time, there's a revitalization that happens. I know a lot of my friends who say I don't have the energy to develop an interest outside of work. I think it's counterintuitive. I think when you develop interest, you have the energy for work and everything else in life.
So it's wonderful hearing Sunitha's voice. It's both such a warm and yet such a balanced voice, right? I remember this study as well. So we've gotten so far anecdotal evidence. There was also, I seem to remember you telling me this study that spoke about the value of interests.
Yeah. there's a lot of studies that talk about the benefits. There's one that I'd like to specifically reference, which is a longitudinal study conducted over 12 years by Fancourt, apparently, and that, among other things, talks about the fact that if I have an interest as an adult, I manage to stave off negativity to a point of stopping it before it becoming depression to a very significant degree. And for folks who are already there, who are feeling already some kind of sadness, possibly people diagnosed with depression, if they pick up an interest, again, very significant odds of recovery once they stick with that interest and build on it.
Just a sense, I think, of us knowing that we are a cog in this world and it's completely up to us what we do with our lives. I always believe that we have this one life and we got to completely wring the juice out of that particular lemon. This might be a good time actually to talk about permissions we need to give ourselves when it comes to interest, and linked to permissions and to our previous topic of conversation is, I think, this idea of perfectionism. One of the things that gets in our way is this need for perfectionism, right? The perfectionist trap. And one of the great things about interests is we usually know we're not the best at that particular area. Whether it's motorcycling, riding off-road for me, music for you, art, whatever it might be, there is, I think, a joy in being a relative neophyte and just being better than you were last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've heard other folks talk about it as well. And I think it really takes that pressure off of you, right? And allows you to bring in, enough humility to say, I'm going to start something new and see, and really give myself permission to be awful at it.
Yeah.
Right?
Messy beginnings.
Messy beginnings, yeah. So it's okay to start and suck at it, right? A good example, bad example that I can think of, bad example first, or example of something that I started and didn't carry on with, is I figured that I should maybe, inspired by you, learn to ride a motorbike properly, and got started with that. It was a great session, right? I started off with absolute butterflies in my stomach. I was, extremely worried. Went there. There was such gentle instruction, and within like half an hour, I'd made so much progress. And everybody else out there, right, who are at various degrees and various levels of comfort, applauded me like I'd won a championship of some sort, right? And you felt so spectacular, and that permission stayed with me even though I didn't continue with the practice itself. But I think it did what it needed to do for me. My motivation was, can I share this hobby with my buddy Pavan? And I was like, maybe not this one, right? And that realization happened separately. But I think the learnings and the sort of courage, despite the million butterflies flying in formation in my stomach, has stayed with me.
But which just actually brings me to something very neatly. The permission to let go of an interest is just as important as the permission we give ourselves to pick it up in the first place, right? Yeah. You might be deeply invested in something. I think of my mom, for example. You're going to be, I think, the oldest person that we are interviewing for this, which I think just goes to prove that having interests really has no barrier, whether that's in terms of age or gender or social or socioeconomic class, any of those things. Now, to set a little bit of context, I mean, as far back as I can remember, you've always had an interest in things outside of your very demanding career as a physician. And I remember back in the day, you used to write middles for some papers. You've always written limericks. You've always written little snatches of poetry. And, then you came to writing full-size novels later in life. In your 60s, was that?
Yeah.
In your 60s, right? And I remember in the middle, you had some years where, because of your background in Carnatic music, you played the sitar and you gave that up very unwillingly. which I think for me just goes to prove that some interests stay with you and some, stay for a season, some stay for a reason. So, here's the thing. You've had a very busy career. You continue, to pursue a career as a physician. You're a physician, you're a pet parent, you've been a child parent to me and Vidyut, and, you've also been a caregiver to other people in the family. And that role continues. So, what are your interests outside of work?
Yeah, I think you've kind of mentioned most of them, like music. Uh, Earlier in life, now I used to even sing and then play the sitar a bit, but now I don't. Only bathroom singing and reading and writing mostly as I'm getting older.
Mm,
Enjoy writing, and I don't have a particular genre. I write everything. For example, as you said, middles, and then earlier, now I'm not doing that. Novels, short stories, essays, and memoir. My very first book was a memoir. My mother, that was wonderful. And I felt
mm,
wonderful writing that.
mm,
The second one is a war book, mostly based on Second World War. The third one is all short stories, and the fourth one is still in the making. So that is how it was. And the other interests, of course, are um, I've always loved my garden, and then
yeah.
I've always loved having dogs at home, uh, apart from my two puppies. And so, and yeah, that is how it is.
I'm also thinking about how the gardens change shape over the decades. At one point, it was almost like a mini forest, and now I still wouldn't call it landscaped, but but it seems to me almost like you've thought about it over the years and decided to have it evolve along with you.
There is several reasons for it. Earlier, when you guys were little, if you remember, the whole garden was mostly occupied by a huge gulmohar tree, a beautiful
Mm,
tree. And then there were swings attached to it. And then right under that, there was a very large sand pit. And you
mm,
guys mostly spent your time there,
yeah.
friends. So after you all grew up and started looking down and noises at these arrangements, these childish arrangements, they came on. And for now, lawn occupies most of the thing. I don't like manicured gardens. I like them to kind of really. I like the plants to have the space to stretch their arms, as it were, and bloom as and when they want to. A flower here, a fruit there, a caterpillar there, that sort of thing.
Let's not forget the odd cobra and rat snake. I think the rat
Oh
snake still
God, don't
exists.
talk about it. Oh my God, yeah, plenty.
So, what I've definitely picked up is writing has always been an interest. Reading's always been an interest. The garden's always been an interest. The dogs that, Vidyut and I have grown up with and that continue to populate the house.
Hmm.
And I think we moved from pedigreed dogs to mostly rescues, which is quite lovely. Mm, yeah, so many of these interests, and I know that especially in your generation of doctors, people tended to be quite monocular about medicine and not much else. What trade-offs, maybe what trade-offs, what bargains, perhaps, what sacrifices even did you have to make to pursue some of these interests?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call them trade-offs. Actually, I don't remember making any trade-offs except perhaps, and with a lot of regret, I must say, my sitar, playing.
Mm, yeah.
I always wanted, I trained in Carnatic classical music when I was in school, that between the ages of 10 and 14. Somehow I felt that it was a bit too structured. So I think, I'm grateful that my mother kind of pushed me into it because it helped me modulate my voice and this and that and catch a
Mhm.
tune. I was a little more partial to, I think, Hindustan
Ah,
with its, there's more um, freedom, to express yourself and all. That's not overly structured. So I picked up the sitar and then I learned a couple of lovely ragas. And after that, my practice picked up and then I just couldn't. You have to do sadhana every day, every day. Otherwise, you lose touch. So then I had to regretfully tell the Masaji, sorry, Masaji, not able to do it.
I remember your regret even all those years ago.
Yeah. Said, sorry, maybe we'll pick it up sometime later, I don't know. But the old gentleman passed away. So that is.
Yeah. I suppose some stay, some go, but they all touch our lives and enrich them.
Oh, yes, you can say that.
So, in what ways have these, various interests of yours uh, enriched your life? What has it done for you being able to carve out time for these interests?
It's been really wonderful. Maybe, your life is what you make of it. Maybe I should illustrate it with a metaphor, common metaphor of, common garden variety of a sweet bee. That is Kesari Bhat. You're wondering how. Kesari Bhat to start with is one of my favorite things. You see, you can prepare Kesari Bhat just with the basic ingredients, that is suji, sugar and ghee. Yeah, that is still Kesari Bhat. But it's just Kesari Bhat. But if you just move over to the side cupboard, pick up some nuts, chop them up, and fry them in ghee only until they become that light golden brown, and then the whole house is permeated with that wonderful heavenly aroma. And then toss in some raisins, and also if you have pineapple at home, chop up the pineapple, put it into it, and add it to the Kesari Bhat. Now that is a dish worthy of gods, and it's a dish dying for. Well, pun intended. But
Let's hope we don't have to go that far that we have to die for.
you don't have to go to heaven to eat that. You can always come here. Right? So anyway, that was the simplest metaphor I could take. So that is.
It's a lovely metaphor, man. You might love it. You might love what it did for you, but you might also recognize that it's played its role in your life, and you might pick it up again at some point. Then again, you might not. The permission, though, I think, to pick up something and let it go at the appropriate time is as important a permission as anything else.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes it can be complex. You could have, and I'm again drawing from my own experience of, I'm reaching that age where I've actively danced for as long as I haven't. But in my head, I still have a strong identity as a dancer. I don't think that's going away. And that's a dichotomy, right? You haven't danced, but you still think of yourself as a dancer. And there are, there is a strong sense of a missed opportunity that this isn't going to come back, that I'm never going to be Rukmini Vijay Kumar, right? And there is regret for that, because I really think I had everything that was required to be extremely good at it. However, it's not crippling and hasn't been. So I think it's possible for both a deep love as well as some degree of regret to both exist about an interest that you've given up.
The paradox of ownership, sort of.
Absolutely. Yeah, and through all of that, do I feel like I'm richer for having experienced that gift for as long as it existed in my life? 100%.
And it continues to touch you, right?
It does, yeah.
Absolutely. Can I talk about another permission, this time perhaps less esoteric, a lot more about logistics? The permission to be away from family and loved ones.
Yeah.
I think that for various historical reasons, cultures like ours, which are mostly, which are less individual centric and more family centric, believe that any free time we have has to be spent with the family. And to pursue most of these interests, which tend to be about you and not about the larger group, you do need to step away. You do need to take that time off. And perhaps it's not a bad thing to negotiate that upfront.
Yeah.
And say, hey, I need X amount of time off. I would say be prepared for some resistance, especially among more traditionally oriented families.
Yeah.
But it's worth, I think, that push.
Yeah. Absolutely. And while you were talking, I just gave myself a permission, which is I've been looking at this place about 3 hours from here that does these pottery fellowships or whatever, where you go there for like a week and you learn. And the reason I've been pushing that is, in my head, what if somebody at home needs urgent help and I'm 3 hours away because I'm doing something as frivolous as pottery, 3 hours away from town. And yeah, and just listening to you, I realized that we all have these things that we're negotiating and not thinking about it maybe consciously. And that just unlocked it for me that maybe I should go do it. I mean, where's the guarantee on anything, right?
So surface the fear,
Surface the fear.
acknowledge it, and then move past it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another one, I think, and like you said, less esoteric permission, is also investment. That it's okay for me to invest in myself, and that could mean money investment in buying equipment or things needed for the interest. It could be investment of time, energy.
Yeah. And as you said that, I started thinking that I think we use the investment of time and money sometimes as stalking horses because we're actually afraid about what it would mean to pick up this interest.
Yeah.
So these are great stalking horses. These are things that we hide behind.
Yeah.
Once you get them out in the open, then you realize that actually, I'm a little bit more afraid of picking this new thing up and not shining at it than it is about money. And many of us are at a point or at a stage in life where investing, some amount of money in an interest which does you good isn't actually going to break the bank.
Correct.
So, yeah, I'm going to be a little controversial and say I think these are stalking horses and not real obstacles.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. I was just thinking about that a little bit because so often I hear I wish I could, but I cannot because, and most of the time that I cannot is along the axis of time and energy or it's money. And the minute I ask myself quite gently, is that really a problem? Then something resembling a permission can start to form itself. And I'm going to say maybe allow that question to hover uncomfortably in your mind for a bit and then let it settle where it does. If it's still a no, it's a no, that's fine, right? But allow the struggle to happen. And I'm saying that because of something that you said earlier, which is so much of our struggle is really being scared of being alone with our own thoughts.
Yes. Yes.
All right, so if somebody comes to us at the end of this and says, okay, I'm sold on the value and benefits of having interests, but give me some practical tips on how do I get started?
Yeah. This is something I used to face all the time, right? When I ran the bike shop, and even now as a motorcyclist, I face this all the time. How do I get started? How do I even identify actors? I think before we figure out, where we get started, how do I identify interest? And I think there are two broad axes that we can look at. For me and for most people that I know, the first axis is what were my childhood interests. I loved motorcycling as a child. I've been fascinated by automobiles all my life. In fact, the only thing I drew in my drawing book at school, was planes, cars, and bikes. So that was an easy one, right? The other axis to pursue is what do people I like and trust, what do these people have as interests? And which of these sound the right chord for me?
Right. And yeah, no, and I think Sunitha says the same things as well, right? So when I asked her what are, how do you pick these interests, she went to each of those. And looking back again, as you said, those are the two primary axes that my interests are aligned on. Either it's something that I've found myself drawn to as a child, um, or it's something that I've seen other people do more recently, and I've been pulled into it, and I find that I'm having fun with it. So yeah, so that should be a great starting point. Yeah.
I'd like to issue perhaps two caveats. Caveat number one is, if you find yourself blessed with a very large number of interests, it makes sense to figure out which you can actually pursue given your current circumstances. Caveat number two is to find people at your level. You know, if you have, let's say, for example, you decide to take up bicycling as an interest, you don't want to be riding with a group that's super advanced, because you'll be demotivated by the fact that they drop you and leave you behind, maybe have to wait for you. They won't like it either. Also, if you're riding with somebody who's way below your level, then you find yourself in the position of having to wait for them, encourage them. And you know, if it's your Sunday pursuit, nobody really wants to be doing that. They want to be doing this for themselves. So I would say find people broadly at your level, maybe a little bit better than you are, but also people with whom you can have a chat about life, the universe, and everything in it once you're done with that pursuit. So there's, I think, an alignment of level, but also an alignment at a broad sort of moral level, perhaps.
Yes, yeah, values alignment.
Values
at
alignment,
some level,
yes,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm reminded of run club jokes, which were mostly that when we're running, we're talking about life, and then when we catch up for a dosa after the run, everybody's talking about the run, all the previous runs. Remember in 2009 we ran that? Yeah. So there's such a strong connection across both the interest as well as how you think about life, that the conversations are effortless, and that's the reason you turn up at Coven Park every Sunday at 5 in the morning, no matter what the weather, and hang out with those people.
That's what gets you out of bed on a rainy day at 9 in the morning.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And I'm going to add one more thing, which is that keep a light touch, and that's something that you said earlier as well, which is there's quite often such a need to say that, oh, you know, maybe I've come to this late in life, and maybe this is the one thing that's been eluding me, and I'm going to like grab onto it and not let it go. And maybe that doesn't allow the thing to really do what it came into my life to do. So, you know, allow it space to spread its magic.
Absolutely. I mean, I started riding dirt bikes at closer to 50 than 40. And, you know, it's changed my life. My mom started writing, well, full-length books at least. Going to say closer to 60 than 50 for sure. And you've written 3 at this point. Sunitha, for example, who loves the piano, doesn't ever see herself as being a concert pianist. So, in fact, I think that some of these interests come into our lives late. And because they come into our lives late, are extra special.
Right.
Because there is that feeling of, what if I never found this? And that gives it a little bit more sweetness than otherwise.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it comes in for a reason, for a period of time.
For a season, sometimes.
For a season, yeah. I remember when I was, I'd finished my MBA, and instead of applying for work, and I was very clear about where I didn't want to work and the kind of organization that I didn't want to work in. So instead of applying to organizations, I was sitting in painting, right? I must have spent a couple of months, doing that. And sure enough, then I moved cities and then started, and that time with those paints, creating something from absolutely nothing. And this is all hindsight, right? In that moment, I was just manically painting. Allowed me to center myself in the realization that you can take something absolutely plain and push something onto it that then hangs on your parents' wall for the next quarter century, and you have the ability to do that. And through my 20s and the turmoil of, understanding yourself as a professional and work and the changing landscape of all that, I've always painted when confused.
Sorry.
And in my 30s, I figured I didn't have to do that as much, right? And So yeah, for a season. Yeah.
So the abstract can be a great proxy for struggles that we're having.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good place to end.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, all right. So, with your permission, shall I sum up? Great. Okay. Monica and I would like to leave you with this idea. Interests enrich us. They make us better human beings. They get us out of the minefield of our own heads. If nothing else, if you've had a feeling that you have an interest that you'd like to pursue, and you're held back by some kind of fear, some voice in your head that says, people my age don't do this, people of my gender don't do this, people of my social class don't do this. But if that voice is sitting on your shoulder and chirping away, please give it heed. To the best of my knowledge, we only have the one life, and it's up to us to suck every last bit of use out of that life. So go out there, find your interests, have fun with it. Thank you.
Thank you.